Balloons, bazookas, boobies, bosoms, boulders, cans, hooters, knockers, melons, honkers, jugs, rack, tatas, tits, torpedoes, guns, bust, doorknobs, coconuts, and our favorite one, the girls. Welcome to the All About Breastfeeding show, where your host, Lori, highlights mothers just like yourself and goes beyond the surface questions and digs deep so they share not only their joys and happiness in their daily breastfeeding life, but also their pain and struggles and how they worked through them.
Episode number 88, the birthday episode. Welcome to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. I am your host, Lori Jill Eisenstadt, IBCLC. You are in for a treat today. I'm going to be talking a little bit in the beginning, and near the end, you're going to have a very big, wonderful surprise. I am recording this show on August 19th, 2016. This is a day where I'm feeling quite sentimental. It is my youngest, my baby, my little girl's 27th birthday. I know it sounds so cliche, but honestly and truly, where have the years gone? I just have no idea how time could have marched on so fast. The days when you're a mother can be so incredibly long, but the months, they actually go pretty fast. And the years, well, they just fly by. When Carly was born, I was in the throes of busy motherhood with a almost 2.5-year-old son, Jesse, and a just turned 5-year-old Alisha. What a pregnancy I had with Carly. With Alisha, I remember being over the top tired when I was pregnant with her. I worked at a job that was about 45 minutes away, and I remember driving home in my 71 blue Camaro with big, heavy doors. And it was winter time. And I was really, really tired about my 4th or 5th month of pregnancy. And I had a hard time staying awake in the middle of the day and near the end of the day. So I would drive with the heat blasting and the window wide open with my hand hanging out of the car. And if I felt really, really tired, I just turned the heat off and I just shivered the whole way home to make sure that I stayed awake. I just could not imagine being so tired every single day until I had that pregnancy, and then I understood what other mothers talked about. My pregnancy with Jesse was great. However, I was so tired with him also. With him, I was home with Alisha all day. Then along comes my 3rd pregnancy. I remember somewhere in January, I just wasn't feeling so great. And I would have these fleeting thoughts on and off throughout the days. Maybe I ate too much during the holiday season, maybe too many sweets. I don't know. I would just have these thoughts for a couple of weeks, but honestly, I was just so busy with 2 kids from sunup till way past sundown. My mind never actually sat quietly long enough for me to think about why I just was not feeling so great. And then came the tell-all signs of pregnancy that I had with pregnancy number 1 and pregnancy number 2. All of a sudden, nipples that I was not really paying much attention to were, well, they were really, really sore. Jesse was a breastfeeding toddler who knew his way around the breast and could find it even when it was covered with a bra, a sweatshirt, and a coat. That baby boy could get what he needed. And about the same time that I realized how sore my nipples were when I brushed against them one morning while showering, I realized later that day that they were really sore when he breastfed. This just confirmed what I had already pretty much figured out. You see, those of us who get sore nipples when we're pregnant don't really need any tests to tell us we're pregnant with subsequent pregnancies. We just let our sore nipples do the talking. Baby number 3. Hooray! Pregnant again. Excitement turned into grappling fear. Capital F-E-A-R. Pretty shortly. I mean, how was I possibly going to stay awake this pregnancy? Oh my goodness, another birth to go through, another child to take care of, fear mixed with joy. Is there even a word for it? You know what? I'm going to make one up right now. How about for joy? F-E from fear and J-O-Y from joy. I feel very for joyful. I kind of like that, for joyful. Well, a few interesting things I wanted to share as it relates to breastfeeding. Jesse happily nursed during this pregnancy, and at some point in toddler nursing, he would nurse usually in the morning and usually at night before going to sleep. Usually at some point in the middle of the day. And any other times it was usually because he was overtired and it helped him to wind down. If he ever got hurt, nursing always helped to calm down the pain from boo-boos. A toddler tantrum because he could not express himself to me, or because he couldn't get what he wanted. Nursing to calm down from a tantrum, or even to ward off a tantrum, came in awfully handy. And I know you moms of toddlers who nurse know exactly what I mean. Anyone who has done toddler nursing knows you just cannot make a toddler nurse. I know some people have said that. That's crazy. It's not like, hey, Jesse, you're having a tantrum. Come here and nurse so you can calm down. While this was usually met with a yes and a breastfeed, there were times when he just vehemently shook his head from side to side, and in no way, shape, or form was he going to nurse. Darn, too bad I can't make him, I would say. It surely would have brought calm and peace to the household. Any of you who have nursed toddlers, you know exactly what I mean. Anyone who hasn't, don't judge. You too might become one of us. I want to tell you something, one of those breastfeeding mommy things that I surely wish someone had told me. You know why? Because not knowing it and the results were quite shocking to me. I was just going with the flow, and I really didn't have much information on breastfeeding. Well, one day, Jesse went to nurse in the morning, and as quickly as he was on my lap, he toddled down onto the floor, walking away from me. And I was like, hey, Jesse, come on, let's nurse. And he kept moving away and shaking his head. I was like, okay. And I just got up and got busy doing other things. A few hours later, when I sat down again, he came to me and went to nurse, but after a minute or so, he quickly climbed down and left me. He just flat left me. And now I was like, this hasn't happened before. What is going on here? This never really happened before. That same day, I sat down to watch Oprah in the late afternoon. This was not unusual for me to have some downtime, watch Oprah and nurse. This time, he just would not even climb aboard. Because this was not his main source of hydration and nourishment, I wasn't worried or anything, just kind of confused. I remember telling my husband later that evening, when Jesse did breastfeed finally, but just for another few minutes, I said to my husband, I don't know, it's weird. The way he acted, it's like my milk turned sour or something. Jesse made a face each time and just pushed away. Could it turn sour? I had no idea. The next morning and afternoon, the same behavior, showed a bit of an interest, started to nurse, and then quickly pushed away. The third day, he did not even show an interest in nursing, did not even try. And for the next several days, I kept asking him, Jesse, want to nurse? It's bedtime. Nope, nope, and nope. Well, what I learned later on, years later, is that in the first few months of pregnancy, your milk decreases. At that time, I had no idea. I learned that progesterone levels gradually rise during pregnancy. I also learned that progesterone levels drop rather quickly after baby's born and the placenta is delivered. Prolactin, which is one of the most important milk-making hormone, is now allowed to kick into high gear. The frequency and efficiency of milk removal now has the potential to increase the supply because the hormones are in proper balance for milk making. During pregnancy, The hormones are not in the balance they need to be to keep up the production. Even if your child is nursing a lot, the supply is very likely to continue dropping. For some babies, they don't mind the drop in supply or perhaps a change in flavor that frequently occurs. For others, they are older at this point, interested in the world around them, have no interest in suckling for very little return, and or maybe they're not thrilled with changes in the taste. If your toddler is old enough and verbal enough, he or she may tell you why he doesn't like the taste or that it's not enough. And of course, this takes the guessing out of it all. They will commonly show a greater interest in more fluids and solid foods, so I wouldn't be surprised. For Jesse, who was just a little over 2 years and 3 months old, he really wasn't quite verbal. His body language, though, said it all. I just didn't understand why. And I was quite sad, which might sound strange, particularly when I was just saying how sore my nipples were when he breastfed. But I was sad. I wasn't prepared for this. It was very abrupt. One day he was a nursing toddler, and the next day he was off and running and never looked back. In hindsight, and based on what I now know, I have a pretty good feeling that my supply was not much at all, and based on how quickly he rejected breastfeeding after a few short sips, I have a strong feeling that the flavor changed for him also. And based on what I now know that the sodium content rises during the weaning process, perhaps it was just too salty. Or perhaps it had turned to colostrum already, and he didn't like that flavor either. I don't know about whatever flavor it was, but I do believe he was turned off by the taste. My instincts tell me that. I wish I knew this information at the time. Instead of being sad and left with feelings of not being able to explain any of this, which further increased my sadness during my pregnancy, I would have felt better knowing that my body was actually performing as it should, balancing the hormones for the state of keeping a pregnancy I was in, and preparing to make colostrum for the new baby. That sounds reasonable to me now. Parents need to know that if they wanted to breastfeed for a full year, however, they want to conceive some point in that first year, they do run the risk of not being able to provide enough milk for their baby, and they may have to supplement with other milk if their baby is under a year. Some parents, if they have this information ahead of time, they may elect to hold off their second pregnancy at least until the end of the first year, where they don't have to give formula. Most parents are not aware that their supply will drop so much as it cannot sustain their first baby. They may make a different decision when they find this out. For others, they want their kids spaced closely, and they will just go ahead as planned. But information is powerful. For me, it is all about parents being able to make decisions that are informed decisions. Circling back to Carly Leah, my baby. While Jessie weaned earlier than I would have liked or was prepared for, my lovely Carly Leah, well, she had a free-for-all. She had the luxury of calling it quits when she was ready. Again, for her, toddler nursing was quite predictable in the morning and at night. During the daytime hours, it was pretty random. I was busy being the oddball mother on the block and in some of my mommy groups. However, family members and friends did remark how quickly Carly was soothed and back on the playground, so to speak, after she got a boo-boo or had a meltdown. When other kids took much longer and much more cajoling to settle down and get them back into the frame of mind to go back on the playground and play with other kids, Carly got there much quicker. We enjoyed a blissful 3.5 years of nursing where it was all good and wonderful in my book. It has been a long, long time, however, when I sit quietly, I can still hear her little voice saying, "Other side, other side." This came about when her older sister Alisha, who was about 5 years and 2 months when Carly was born, she would see her cry sometimes after feeding from the first side. She'd get a little anxious watching Carly cry for more, and she would say, "Mommy, give Carly the other side. And she would ask Carly, do you want the other side? I got into the habit of saying, other side? Do you want the other side? And this turned into Carly asking herself when she became more verbal. She would pop off one side, smile and say, other side, other side. Every child is different, and I have been around the block long enough to know that for Carly, she was a lovely, healthy specimen of a toddler. She never had an ear infection or even a common cold, no fevers, flu, stomach upset, no antibiotics, and no Tylenol was ever needed for her. She was a social butterfly. She had a smile for everyone, and despite the concerns that people had about her being very dependent because she was nursing for so long, she was quite the independent baby and toddler. She's all grown up now, married for 2 years, just bought a house with her handsome husband. She's still a social butterfly, happy-go-lucky girl, just like her big sister Alisha, always with a smile on her face, and is always very anxious to travel, be adventurous, and try new things. My mother always says, you just can't be unhappy when Carly's in the room. Happy birthday, Carly. We had a great time celebrating your birthday this evening and hanging out with you, your husband, and the rest of the family. Love you forever, Mommy. And now I have a very, very special treat. I have a guest on the show, and I'm just going to move right into that interview. Let's get started. I am so excited and thrilled beyond belief to have my daughter agree to be a guest on the show today. I would like to welcome Carly Leah to All About Breastfeeding, the place where the girls hang out. Thrilled to have you here, Carly.
Hi. Happy to be here, everybody.
What was your reaction when I asked you if you wanted to be interviewed for the show?
I was concerned about what questions I was going to be forced to answer. And then I started thinking, how can I make these questions embarrassing to my mother?
I mean, how can you embarrass me?
Basically, I read the questions and I was like, how can I turn this around and embarrass my mother? Because my mom likes embarrassing everybody else.
I was going to say, oh my goodness, A, we're off to a good start, and B, you definitely are your mother's daughter.
Yep. You taught me how to embarrass well.
The apple does not fall far from the tree.
So true.
I would like to start off this conversation by asking you the same thing that I ask all my guests. I'd love to know about where you grew up and what was life like for you in the family that you grew up with.
I was born on Long Island, New York, and then when I was 10, I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. I am the baby of 3 kids, and you guys both know my mom. You guys all know my mom, and probably have some information about my dad. Life was really good. I was the baby, so I got everything I wanted. And yeah, life was good. I have a great sister, a great brother, and we always get to argue with each other who's the parent's favorite.
And who did the other 2 say the parent's favorite is?
I say it was Jesse, but apparently the others all say it's me. And I don't believe that for a second.
And why do they say that you're the favorite?
I don't know. Probably because I got away with everything. But now as adults, and we don't need to get away with things, I don't think I'm the favorite anymore.
Well, then how come when you're all sitting together, you still get into the same argument and they still say the same thing?
Well, I've seen you and your sister get into the same argument. Actually, no, it's not. You all believe Aunt Joanne's the favorite. I think that's a consensus.
Well, that's interesting because I'm one of 5. And Aunt Joanne is the baby. She is the favorite. And even my mother will admit it.
Grandma doesn't. She just laughs and chuckles to herself and goes, stop it, stop it.
She makes no bones about it.
Well, Aunt Joanne has to be the favorite.
You grew up with listening to me as a childbirth educator, playing childbirth videos in the other room.
Yep.
When I was teaching classes. I've been a birth doula. You probably, I know you don't remember this, but when you were 9 months old, you actually came along with me on a birth because you were still breastfeeding pretty frequently.
Mom.
And
Didn't know
I
that.
know.
What were you thinking?
I was thinking that it would be pretty cool, and so did everybody else.
Oh, great.
You also know me as a lactation consultant. Let me hear from your voice only what was life like growing up with a mother who's a childbirth educator, a birth doula, and a lactation consultant.
Well, for one thing, it was never uninteresting. My mom always had interesting stories to tell at the dinner table about this client or that, or something she read, or some interesting thing that she heard about or talked about with somebody else. And she always, maybe not by accident, but she always liked to embarrass us every night at the dinner table. So life was always a bit awkward with my mom. She enjoyed making us feel embarrassed at every opportunity.
Because I talked about real life stuff.
Right. Most of my friends' mothers didn't talk about breastfeeding and giving birth to 12-year-old girls.
And they would come over the house and I would have childbirth pictures. I used to have posters because I used to teach classes in the house. So
Right.
there were posters around.
Right. And all of my friends just thought you were entertaining because you had no filter. Maybe you did and I just didn't realize it, but I always thought you had no filter with anybody.
And now, do you think I have a filter?
Hopefully when you meet my in-laws, you'll have a filter.
Yeah, I think my son-in-law is worried about me meeting his parents.
I think we all are.
I guess I'll have to walk around with duct tape on.
Yeah, I'll just give you like a shh noise when you start going a little bit too far into the wilderness of your brain.
And a lot of kicking under the table.
Yeah, I'll be sitting next to you doing most of the kicking. Just so you don't get too intrusive.
I will wear heavy boots. Thank you for letting me know. Do you have any funny stories or interesting stories to share about anything that happened when you were a kid growing up related to the work that I do?
Well, not just when I was a kid, but probably for the most part, you talked about I don't know if you still are, but you used to be obsessed with tongue tie. And you used to look at my friends or see pictures of my friends or listen to my friends talk and tell me that you think they had tongue tie and that I should take a picture of them with their tongue up so that you can see inside their mouths and find out. And you do that with like celebrities and like everyone you see on TV. You're like, I think that person has tongue tie. And so and it was a topic that you probably circled back at dinner several times.
Yeah, there is a huge learning curve when you're first being introduced to tongue tie and lip tie, and there's all anterior ties and posterior ties. And believe me, there are actually books pretty thick written on the subject.
I've lost count of how many times that you've asked me to look in my tongue to double check that I'm not tongue tied.
I know, you think I could tell by now, right?
Yeah, no, you just have to double check for the most part.
Yeah, I just want to take another look. That's a good excuse. But yeah, I know I've sent you pictures of celebrities. I've told you, hey, look at this video. I think that person is tongue-tied.
Hey, to be fair, I sent you a picture of my friend the other day who posted how she had clipped her tongue. And she's like a 25-year-old.
Those are the things that like make me sit at my desk and go like, yes! When you kids send me pictures or tell me about someone who is breastfeeding.
Like I did my job right.
I did my job right, exactly. That's my point. At what point did you become aware that you were breastfed? And also, like, when did you have an awareness of what that even meant?
I can't remember a time that I was aware that I was breastfed. Like, similar to, I don't think most people, like, even know if they were breastfed. Like I, in my head, probably just thought about it as eating. It's like, would you ask a baby, like most adults, I would say, don't know if they were breastfed or formula fed unless they're in the industry and have cared to ask their parents. So for me, I don't ever remember not knowing. It's like, do you remember the first time you drank water and knew what that meant? So.
Well, that's pretty cool. So it was just a part of the rhythm of everyday life. And
yeah.
Although you probably don't remember, for a good part of your earlier years, you were just around many, many moms and babies who were breastfeeding, and it was just part of your everyday life.
I'm sure it wasn't out of the norm at all. It wasn't anything I needed to like have this big realization over. especially
Do
since
you
you probably
remember?
talked about it all the time.
I did. I did. Well, not necessarily because I didn't start learning to become an IBCLC until you were about 10. So before that, I breastfed all three of you, but I probably talked about birth a whole lot more in those early days. And because breastfeeding was just like a natural extension of my mothering and what I did every day. And
Right.
I wasn't learning about it. I just knew whatever I knew. And it was just kind of like brushing my teeth. So I didn't really think too much about it. But probably as you got older, for sure, especially when I was going through the learning process, I don't know. I mean, and Jesse could probably share, I have very vivid memories of me studying breastfeeding and looking at different breasts on the internet
Ugh,
and him
poor
passing
Jesse.
by. I know, especially when there was one of, to get a little graphic here, of a woman who had a breast infection. I remember he passed by me
Ew.
and he was like, "Oh my goodness, do I really need to see that?" So, do you remember seeing any pictures when you weren't planning on seeing any pictures?
You mean when I was a
For my
kid or
text.
now? Because it still happens now.
It does.
Like you'll
Like, when
post
does
something,
it
you'll post
happen?
something. Well, sometimes you'll post something in your Facebook group that's just like a little too graphic for me. I'm just like, oh, mom, it's too early to see that.
You're literally checking out your Facebook at 7:30 in the morning on the way to work, and
Yeah, and
then you
it's like
see something
Lori
with boobs
Eisenstadt
in there.
posted something at 45 minutes ago about cracked, bleeding, sore nipples, and you're just like, oh, okay, and I don't want breakfast.
Oh, Carly, that makes my heart tickle.
You're
I love
lucky I
that.
don't block you.
I know. I'm waiting for one of my kids to block me after a bit. I want to know, do you remember at some point having knowledge that breastfeeding, babies who breastfed for a year or longer tended to have a higher IQ? I mean, I know you know that
um,
now, but do you remember when you first found that out?
I can't remember that. Like, I don't know if your viewers know, but all five of us are vegetarians. So it's like, when did you realize that, like, not eating meat and the benefits of that or the negatives of that, whatever your viewers think? But I mean, it's like the things of life, like what is going to school and having books and what are the benefits of those? It's just, I don't remember learning all of a sudden that it was this great thing my mom had done for me because it was always just a part of my life.
Well, that's actually kind of a cool answer because it's really the way that it should be. In
Yeah.
that it's just a part of the fabric of your everyday life and nothing exactly is standing out. And it's just what you do, what you
When
did
I'm
and what you were
older
surrounded by.
now and I know people who have breastfed and you drilled it into me the older I got, the benefits of breastfeeding versus formula feeding. Like now I see it in action, I guess, more prominently because, you've been a lactation consultant. How many years have you been a lactation consultant in our house that I've seen you talk about it and be with mothers? So I don't know. It's just something that it's been put into practice more, but I guess it's something I always knew.
Hmm.
Probably because I've heard you go on rants about formula my entire life.
Well, at least a good 18 years.
Yeah.
So you've heard a lot. You've probably heard enough.
Yes. I've heard a lot,
Do you
that's for sure.
remember do you remember ever bragging to anybody? Because I know that I used to hear you brag when you were younger and you didn't know that there might be anything that you might have been awkward or embarrassed about. So I definitely know there was a point in some of your very early elementary years that you would brag to other kids that you were breastfed for 3.5 years. Do you remember that?
I do slightly remember that. I'm not really sure how I bragged about it, but it was, I don't know. Like, I think it's just one of those, like, why are you so smart? And my answer was because I was breastfed. And I think it's probably because you drilled that into me as a kid. If you ask your kid, like, what's that person's name? Like, what's that a card? Why are you so smart? And your answer to me was because you were breastfed for 3.5 years. So it was one of those drilled off memory things.
All right, Carly, now that you're older, why are you so smart?
Oh, because I was breastfed for 3.5 years.
Good answer. Good answer.
I know better than to not say anything but that for my answer. You still ask
I
that
know.
all the time. And I think you've asked my husband now and he knows the answer. It's been drilled into him.
Oh my goodness, what people must think of me. We have fun with this though, don't we?
It's never a dull moment, that's for sure.
Never a dull moment. I didn't ask you to see this beforehand, so I know that you were out of the country, so I don't know if you saw another one of my Facebook posts, but there was one. We talked a lot about public shaming and moms nursing in public. So the first part of the question is, I want to know, what do you really think about women nursing in public and about public shaming or other stories or even other friends that you've had? Any the negative stuff that you hear about moms nursing in public, what are your thoughts about that?
I haven't personally heard anything negative about it. I've just seen what's on the internet. I don't think there's any problem with it, obviously. And I think if I did, I wouldn't be invited home for Thanksgiving.
You got that right, babe.
But, I think public shaming is just a part of the culture. And there's not one thing out there that person can't be both praised for or shamed for, especially with the age of the internet. I mean, you can do something that's really great and people will, like Taylor Swift donated $1 million to the people of Louisiana and people are still mad at her about not donating enough or something ridiculous like that. Like, you can do something really good from the heart to do this and people are still out there complaining.
Oh, yeah, you definitely can't please everybody all of the time.
No.
Do you understand why moms breastfeed their babies in public?
Because they have to eat, duh.
Thank you. I mean, it's so simple, right?
It's like, have you seen my husband eat? When he wants to eat, he needs to go to the grocery store right away and get something. He can't wait an hour.
Your husband and my other lovely son-in-law, John, they will literally, and it's not like we don't serve them enough, but they will literally eat before they come over and eat, or before we go out to a restaurant to eat, because maybe they'll be embarrassed about how much food they eat in front of us. I don't know. But both my son-in-laws have a huge appetite.
Yes.
What do you think about the video where this mom was nursing in Target? A male customer came upon her and started shouting at her and telling her all kinds of negative stuff about what she was doing. And there was another customer who never met this mother, but she definitely came to her rescue. She stood up for her. And then you can see, I believe there were 3 other male Target employees who came up to this mom's defense, and they dealt with this really unruly, mean, nasty male customer. And I'm curious to know if you ever found yourself in that position. Do you think that you would defend this mom? You would go out of your comfort zone and defend her?
I am a very, very low confrontational person. I do not like confrontation. I will avoid it at all costs. I will walk on opposite sides of the street to people I don't want to talk to. I will bury my head in my cell phone on the light rail to avoid speaking to people or be involved in any sort of arguments. So I would hope in that situation that I would step up and try and defend somebody, but I really don't know. I think it's disgusting that a grown man did it in the first place. Like, mind your own business, and also it's a mother and a baby. Yeah, no, I would hope I would step up and say something. I haven't been approached in that kind of situation. I think I've seen 1 or 2 women breastfeed in public, and I kind of give them this good on you smile, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean, I've thought about that too. I mean, I'm obviously very ensconced in the world of breastfeeding, but I don't really avoid confrontation in most places, but I tend to hold back more in public places because I'm just nervous about people's reactions and what they might do. So
yeah.
that
I guess with strangers, you don't do confrontation. With your family, you're all about that confrontation.
Yeah, I was really impressed with these people because I might have even held back. I think in the end, I just seeing this mother and how vulnerable she was with her newborn, I don't think I would have thought more than a second or two, and I'm pretty sure I would have jumped in there. But, I can still appreciate other people who might want to avoid that, which is why I'm so impressed with the mom who came to her defense. And it's not that I'm not impressed with the employees, but at least they're employees. That is their job. Hopefully they understood their company's policy about moms being able to breastfeed wherever it is they are, and they were very appropriate and jumped in. But the whole thing is ridiculous. And some people say, well, I don't even know why she had to breastfeed her baby there. Don't you think that's a ridiculous question?
Yeah. That's why she have to breastfeed. She can breastfeed her baby anywhere.
Right. Why not there?
People are ridiculous. There's a food court in Target. Why do people got to eat there? Just saying.
You're right. Very good point, my lovely Carly. Leah?
I try. So this is why I get invited back for all the family occasions. All them
Always. You'd have to do a lot worse. Except now we're coming to my last question, and you really need to think about this.
Okay.
I know that you and your lovely husband at some point are going to grace us with grandbabies.
In your dreams.
When you have, in my dreams, every night I go to sleep with that dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have both of you talked about when you have a baby, if you're going to breastfeed your baby?
We have both talked about that we would have no choice because of who my mother is. And she would kill us if we didn't. We'd have no choice.
What have I told you about birthing too?
No, you basically have gone around. I think when you first brought it up and I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have a kid. You're like, if you did, it would have to be a home birth, no medication. You need a doula. You need a midwife. On and on and on. I was like, nope, hospital, and drug me up. And you gave me a really sad face. So I
pounced on you.
So we've joked that we'd have to move away.
Yes, it's a family joke that if you wanted to have a baby and do it your way, which might not be my way.
Definitely would not be your way.
You would have to move out of the country.
Basically.
But just so that my listeners know that I'm really not that bad, I always end that conversation, and this is really the truth. It's your baby, your breast, and your body, and you will get to do whatever you want and what you need to do for yourself, whatever choices you and your husband make.
Thanks, Mom. I'll keep this podcast forever as proof.
I know. It's a good party line, isn't it?
Yep. I know, Mom. You're putting it out there into cyberspace. It can't ever go away now.
I know. Maybe I'll edit this part out.
No. I want this recorded for everybody to hear.
Is there anything, Carly, about breastfeeding or your life with me that I have not asked you that you wanted to put into place in this part of the show?
Maybe you could have asked me, was dinner at your house every night, like listening to you doing a podcast? And the answer is yes. I've had, 15 years, 365 dinners of podcasts. So too bad you weren't recording it since I was born.
Too bad. I actually would have had a whole lot more material, a lot of funny stuff.
You would have a lot. You would have a lot of head banging from the siblings. A lot of uhs and mom.
Yeah, but you want to know something funny? I mean, there was a lot of things that we talked about, especially when it turned to sex stuff. But when we talked about breastfeeding, see, look at you now, even you're like, ew. But when it turned to breastfeeding, interestingly enough, you and your sister really could care less. But your brother always had an interest, and he would even come home from school, sit down in my office and say things like he would come out with something about a breast infection or something. Did you know this, and did you know that? Well, he did, because, you know,
it does sound like Jesse.
Well, ultimately, it turned out that he was very interested in healthcare. He's gone into medicine, has become a doctor. Mm-hmm. And he will listen to discussions I have or talk about what happened with a certain mom. I never give out names or anything, and he's the one who shows the interest, and he's the one who asks the questions, and you girls are like, bye-bye, I'm out of here.
Well, see, that's why he's your favorite child.
My son?
Yep. He'll actually talk to you about it when me and Alisha will be like, and we're going upstairs.
That's right. Well, you should see when him and Daddy start talking politics on FaceTime. And then I'm out of there. Then when we start talking about medicine, Daddy walks away and says, I'm out of here.
That's funny.
To be fair, this is what I always tell you kids, though. Alisha Heather is my favorite oldest child. Jesse is my favorite son. And you are my favorite baby daughter.
Aw, thanks, Mom.
That's kind of how I get away.
You're lucky you didn't have 4 kids.
I know. Let's see. Well, I would have been creative and come up with something to make you all happy and out of my hair.
Being someone's favorite second son does not inspire confidence.
That's okay. I do that with my own mother. She has 5 children and she has 3 daughters. And I always say that I'm her favorite daughter. And the other one says, no, I'm her favorite daughter. And what does Grandma do? She holds up her hands and says, I'm out of here. I'm out of here. She says, you're all my favorite. Yes. All right. Any lasting thoughts, Miss Carly Leah?
No. Thanks for having me on your podcast. I can't wait to hear it live.
You don't even know this yet, but I recorded this show on your birthday yesterday.
Aww.
And I was just very sentimental about it being your birthday and when you were a little girl and breastfeeding and how the years have passed. And then I thought, you know what? I'd love to have you on the interview so you can talk about some of the stuff related to breastfeeding. So you're going to get to hear it in its entirety. But I really asked you as another piece to this whole interview. So I really thank you very much and appreciate your time. We had a great dinner last night. Love spending your birthday with you. And I know that you and your handsome husband are continuing the partying by going out with a bunch of friends tonight. So I do not want to make you late.
Thanks. And start getting ready right about now.
All right. Thank you so much, Carly.
You're welcome. And bye, everybody.
Love you.
Love you. Bye.
Thanks for hanging out with me for another great show here at All About Breastfeeding. If you would like to learn more about me, please check out allaboutbreastfeeding.biz/about. Until the next show, bye-bye.